Hello, 2025. Kit Merker here from Plainsight, and I'm joined by Techno King, solopreneur, punk rock counterculture influencer, Larry Carvalho, who's the principal consultant at RobustCloud, ex-IDC, ex-automotive guy, knows everything, knows everybody in the industry. Great to be with you, Larry. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Just to keep it very short, I'm an independent analyst, and right now what is exciting to me is what generative AI is doing in the world.
First of all, it's awesome to have you here, as always. Great to see you. Love to have you stop by whenever you're in town. What did you see at reInvent? Was there anything going on with generative AI from Amazon at reInvent?
There are a couple of things. Amazon is trying to grow, and they had a lot of good migration tools all the way from VMware to mainframes and others to get more workloads onto AWS. The other big thing that they talked about was the offerings of multiple models on their primary AWS solutions, which is Bedrock.
So tell me more about the generative AI that you learned about at reInvent from Amazon.
So one of the things was giving customers a choice of models on Bedrock. And they had a nice dinner for analysts at the stadium to say, here's who we are partnering with. So the partners, Anthropic, Meta, others were there.
And you.
And me. I was an analyst thing. I don't have an LLM of my own. But there were partners there who are choosing Amazon infrastructure for their LLMs, which is a big deal. So what I thought I saw there was companies like Anthropic and Apple Intelligence saying that we are all into Amazon infrastructure to do our training and inferencing for their AI workloads. I thought that was a big win for Amazon. There are many SaaS companies who already say we are going to use Amazon as our infrastructure, Salesforce, Workday, several others. In this case, it is about giving customers a choice of models, but running on our infrastructure. Now, if you have your data on AWS, you've got everything in one place. So it becomes a big win for customers as well as Amazon capability of different models sitting on top of Amazon.
Your point about data, I think, is very well taken. Many of, with Plainsight, we work on vision data for enterprises. Yep. So when we're addressing a customer's environment, they often, always pretty much, have a lot of video data that's stored in the cloud. And the idea of migrating it or processing it, video and image data is very heavy.
Yes.
And there's a data gravity to it. And so is that part of how you're seeing the strategy for the cloud providers, is sort of meet customers where they are and help them extract more value out of the data that's already flowing through their cloud?
Yes, I think the data being there, but I don't know about in vision, is so much of latency required. For vision, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done on the edge, but there's a lot of stuff that can be done at the back end. You want to recognize image, but you don't have a need for immediate responses. You can do it on the cloud. But if you're doing something which is in a store and you're trying to do something, you need to be right on the edge over there.
Well, this raises a really interesting question, because with the edge deployments and the cost associated with GPUs and the difficulty that organizations are having with model training, this probably leads directly into this model choice question as well, because now we have to have models for different sizes and connectivity and design points. Do you think this is something that has kind of solidified, or is it still emerging, how the different kind of model trade-offs out in the market?
I think it's still emerging, like everything in AI.
Yeah.
However, there are some trends coming up early, and we are seeing models very capable of certain things, whether it is video generation or one of my favorite topics is about software development. So while Microsoft got Copilot, there are several companies building very unique capabilities only for software development, going end to end. that is one thing where you're going to see certain models go for a certain industry or a certain domain. That industry may be automotive, obviously on the edge, if you would, but also automotive, we have shop floor inspection, a lot of things that can be done on industry vertical space or legal. There's lawyers have some unique LLMs that they are using to develop material, even court cases and others that they're doing.
And sometimes the court cases are made up by the LLMs.
Exactly, and they get into trouble.
Yes.
I think we talked about that last time. There was somebody who just put a case and they got thrown out in no time.
Yeah.
But this domain specific, like software development enablement, is going to be a big deal. And what I'm seeing Salesforce do is bring up solutions very unique for salespeople. What can they do? How can you personalize something? And we talked about agents last time.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to come up with that unique agents. Satya Nadella came up with a big deal saying that SaaS is going to be all replaced by agents.
I saw that. What's your take on that? I was thinking about this idea that all the business logic, everything moves up to the prompt layer. I mean, he basically dismissed SaaS. Maybe we can put a link to the clip in the video. I don't know.
The SaaS applications or biz apps. So let me just speak of our own dynamics thing.
Right.
The approach at least we're taking is, I think the notion that business applications exist, that's probably where they'll all collapse.
Yes.
Well, he basically dismissed SaaS as just CRUD operations with AI layer above it. So what do you think about his point of view?
I think he's got a good point, but I don't agree with the time he's talking about. He's giving about a 12-month, 18-month, or even less. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen that quickly, but in a gradual way. I'm going to see companies like Salesforce, Workday, and others re-architect their solutions to be saying that these are all agents, and now you can bring together these agents to solve one particular task much better than what was done before with a heavy duty full Salesforce application portfolio that you get, and when you're actually just using some of it.
Well, one of the beauties of B2B SaaS is the cost structure. And we expect that B2B SaaS businesses will have, significant margins.
Yes.
One of the things that I've, seen people discussing, and it's kind of interesting to think about, is that, with the cost of AI, I don't know that anyone is profitable on AI anywhere in this industry. There may be, save NVIDIA, who are really selling the picks and shovels, so to speak. But the companies that now bring AI into the mix, when before, it's kind of like, if you need a whole Kubernetes cluster to do what a static web page would do, it's the same kind of analogy, right? You're using AI to go and figure out what needs to be done for what could have been an if statement, right? In some cases. The cost of that is dramatic and can eat into margin. So do you think that this is something that sounds good from a technology perspective, but maybe the economics and the business of it doesn't quite work out? What do you think?
I think right now the economics is not working out, in my opinion, for anybody. And for the SaaS companies doing that, like you said, their margins are important for them. They are running a business with a lot of customers. We are going to see some efficiencies mostly on the hardware and software side that will bring down these costs. Caching is something which is very simple, that you don't want to keep running inferencing over and over again if you can
the same query, the
same query, the same part. There's a lot of opportunity there, but there's also places where you can say, but even though I'm spending so much more, the value I'm getting is much higher. Like we talked about software development.
Yep.
If I can now deliver new functionality in half a day, I can get better security for my applications. Now we are talking about some real benefits. So it's a question of value versus what you're going to spend. At reInvent, I did see a lot of energy around Amazon's Trainium and Inferentia chips. So they are reducing the cost with those chips, even though NVIDIA is their biggest partner and NVIDIA is running on Amazon because Amazon got a great infrastructure. NVIDIA is running on them, but they're also running on Google, on Microsoft, on Oracle, and others. But the cost structure of Amazon, if it can become good enough, that's going to be a benefit.
Well, we know Amazon historically has always strived to drive down costs, which
Yes.
is one of their most salient strategic imperatives. And I think that could have a driver. And this is what worries me a little bit about the rush to AI, is that there's a lot of money and a lot of interest chasing something that may or may not bear out to be business friendly. And so, for me, like when I'm working with customers, I think about this all the time. I have to counsel customers that their, whiz bang crazy AI idea maybe isn't going to pencil out just yet. And we look at ways we can drive down not only the cost, but reduce the complexity, faster time to value, reduce a lot of this annotation, human in the loop work using kind of simplified means. And a lot of that goes to exactly what we're talking about, which is the AI revolution for consumer. That's one thing. It convinced people to have a AI subscription that costs about the same as maybe a little bit more than their Netflix subscription is quite a feat in the consumer market. When it comes to business, the scrutiny on the cost, it's going to have to go beyond, what I would say is kind of like an information worker type of thing. I know businesses are at least claiming that they're replacing people with AI already, which is to me a little bit shocking, because I see the quality is not there across the board, but that's okay. That trend seems like it's going to continue. And this model choice question, the tools from the cloud providers, it just makes sense to me that that's going to become a fundamental part of mission critical enterprise workloads, right? So I guess, play the story forward. Like where does this, let's get past some of these initial issues here. Look out 3-4 years from now. Like, where do you see this being?
I see the model choice becoming the same way as customers are afraid of vendor lock-in.
Yeah.
They're getting afraid of getting a model lock-in. Am I going to be locked into this model because I'm using this cloud provider?
I think you just coined that term, model lock-in.
Model lock-in.
I think you heard it here first. I like it. All right, go on.
So if you have a model lock-in and say, this is all I can do, you're really stuck and you got a range of problems. So you can now say, hey, I want this model or this model, an open source model, a proprietary model. But as you are solving problems, you go and pick which model is appropriate for you. I think open source is playing a big role in this area of coming out with customers saying, I don't want a proprietary model, I want an open source model. For certain things, if 80% of my stuff can be done with an open source model, let me do that one. It's going to be less expensive. It's going to do better in certain tasks. So I think these are the areas you're going to see some movement.
So Larry, we've heard about large language models.
Yep.
Tell me about small language models.
So what I'm seeing in the large language models is just bigger is not just better. You have to have real value on that. There's so many companies playing in the large language model space, like we talked about some of them earlier. What we are going to see with small language models is unique data being trained on unique solutions and getting better value. What we are seeing is companies who already have decades of software development with them. They can train all their source code, use their source code to train models, and now get better value for what they want to deliver. Bank or financial companies are ideal targets for that. So IBM is doing it for mainframes. How they can take all that COBOL code, millions of lines of COBOL code, and convert that to Java. Because it's not just, COBOL code is bad.
Trade one maintenance nightmare for another, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So now they want to go to Java. So in training that model and being able to do it better is going to be a unique solution with small language models.
Do you think that, so first of all, I guess a couple questions about. One, do you have to start from scratch with a small language model? And two, do these organizations really have the resources and expertise to train it? Or is this something that is going to be really reserved for the select few in building these small language models?
I think you have to have a big enough problem first to solve it, but you do have to start in a way from scratch. You can take some of the other models and, add to it, unique value for software development especially. But it is going to be starting with some folks with really large problems, but which a small language model can solve.
I see. And so as we think about a lot of what we talked about with models, model choice, models at the edge,
Yep.
model lock-in, open source models, all this. Where does this converge? Do models become commoditized where there's just all these different choices that you can just pick and choose and grab it? Or are models going to be a differentiator for organizations? Like, where do you think the real difficulty? Because it's getting easier and easier. So where is the real difficulty going to be for companies adopting and want to use AI strategically in their organization, especially like across the enterprise or across businesses? Is it going to be about how they source their models? Is the model supply chain? Is that going to be the issue? Like, where do you think this is going to kind of, play forward?
Okay, model supply chain. That's something new you heard.
All right, we coined another one. All right, great.
So I think the companies who will choose the providers that have a choice of models and the ability to say, I got this problem and I know which models solve it, and I'm going to redirect that for that model. That ability is going to be the differentiator in the future by not having that model lock-in we talked about earlier, but to be able to say, I'm going to redirect my query to the model which is going to solve it. And, just talking about these small language models, another one that just came to my mind is accounting.
Yeah.
It's such a commodity task that people on accounts payable, accounts receivable, constantly are doing the same thing. How can you get a small language model to solve a unique problem for a certain company or for larger companies? And that is a place where people talk about offshoring, nearshoring, all of their AP and AR tasks. How can you bring that in? And it comes down to, all these work being done with much fewer people and people being improved in the job satisfaction, going from menial work to creative work. In that.
What do you think not to take this to a much grander scale, but if you zoom out, what do you think where is your stance, I guess, or your point of view on the impact of AI on the workforce, on humanity? What do you think is going to happen from that point of view? I'm just curious.
It's too early to tell as usual, but I see that it will change how everybody works. It's going to come top down from the management to say, learn AI and learn how to work with AI rather than fight it. If you fight it, your job is not going to be safe. If you figure out how you're going to use an agent to keep helping you, then I think you got a better chance of surviving this change.
So Larry, we talked about all kinds of cool stuff. What's next for you? Where are you headed off to next? What are you be paying attention to in 2025?
I'm going to Cloud Native Computing Foundation. I've got 2 talks submitted. I'll find out on Monday whether they're accepted.
Fingers crossed. By the time this video is out, it's probably already been decided. Schrodinger's CFP at this point.
Yeah. 1 in 10, less than 1 in 10 I accepted. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
So I'll be at CNCF and talking to a lot of customers about what they are doing in the container world. And you are in the container world. You started the container world.
I was there.
So I'm looking forward to that in London. I
Awesome.
don't know if you're going to be there. I hope to.
If I'm there, we'll get a cup of tea together.
There you go.
Anyway, pleasure to have you. And for everybody out there, Kit Merker from Plainsight signing off. Follow us on YouTube, and may all of your AI dreams come true.
Thank you.